Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic, where today we've got a really interesting puzzle for you. This is a puzzle by the excellent solver and, it turns out, setter Jonas Gleim from Germany, and he made this puzzle a year or so ago to commemorate, well, two things I think. Firstly, the German Sudoku Championship, which was on the 21st of April 2018. So you can see here 21st April 2018 in the diagonals, and indeed referenced in the columns as well, 2018 across the top. So it's a very thematic puzzle, and also coincidentally Jonas's birthday. So yeah, kill two birds with one stone. Now this is a normal between 1 and 9 Sudoku, except for a big twist. So just to remind you what the rules of 1 and 9 Sudoku are, if there was a 9, for example, in this row in this square, that would imply these three cells here would have to add up to 21. Now, what's different about this puzzle? Well, first you can see we've got incomplete information along the columns, so that's unusual. Secondly, and more importantly, the German expression for this puzzle is knapp den Ben, which means a close miss. Every single digit in this puzzle is wrong by one number, so the real number is either one greater or one fewer than the number you see. Now that makes it an extremely difficult solve, believe me. Both Mark and I have tried this puzzle. I tried to do it as a live solve, and some of you have asked the question whether we always manage to solve puzzles or whether there's sort of a blooper reel for Cracking the Cryptic, which consists of us making a right mess. Well, that's certainly what happened to me when I tried to live solve this. It took me just over an hour to do that, and lots of the video consisted of me holding my head in my hands weeping. So I didn't think that would make for a particularly entertaining video, although some of you might think it would be might make for an amusing solve, I guess. So I now have solved this before, and therefore hopefully this will be less than an hour, although I think it will still take me quite a while to talk through the logic here. Do try the puzzle yourselves. I think that gives you two things. Firstly, a way to appreciate the setter here and what he's managed to achieve with these restricted numbers. I mean, it really is a work of art, this puzzle, but it will also give you an idea of just how brutally hard this puzzle is. Finally, I guess an appeal: if you do enjoy the content, please subscribe. We really appreciate it. Please consider becoming patrons on Patreon of the channel. It's not so expensive. $2 a month gets you our own puzzle, our monthly puzzle, which we create ourselves, and then just one more dollar, $3 a month, you get a video on how to solve that puzzle, and all the support you give us is so appreciated, and it really helps us to continue to do what we're doing. So with all that said, let's think about how we would go about solving this puzzle. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and address some of the numbers given in the grid. For example, a 0 here, well obviously we can't go to -1 in a Sudoku. This is going to have to be a 1. So these two are going to be 1s. I'm going to change the font when I know a number so it's black. These two 1s can't go to 0s either, so these are going to have to go to 2. That's going to be, both of those are forced. This 2 can't go to 1, so it's got to go to 3 because of the 1 that's already in the box. And now this 4 can't go to 3, so this is going to become a 5. Now we've got a 1 or a 3 here, and a 7 or a 9 here. Okay, so I don't know what those are going to be, so I'm going to just pencil mark them in. And then we're going to switch tack, and we're going to try and do our normal thing with between 1 and 9 Sudoku, which is to try and identify the squares in the grid that cannot be 1s and 9s. Now we have to remember in doing this that all these numbers are wrong. So, I mean, the most obvious starting point, I guess, is the 4. Even if this is wrong, it must be a very small number. The maximum it can be is 5, which means the maximum is 2 cells would be used to make the number 5. If this was, say, a 2 and this was a 3, the 9 could be there, but it couldn't be any further away. And it obviously can't be next to the 1, so we get a little bit of work done there. Now, this 18, again, so the minimum that can be is 17. Now 17 in a between 1 and 9 Sudoku must be at least 3 digits, because it can't include a 9 in the summation. So we're going to have at least 3 digits away from the 1. So this could be, no, this can't be a 9 though. If this was a 9, look, that's going to break that 18 up there. So although the 18 can be less than 18, it can't be that much less than 18. And actually we can go further than that, because the maximum this can be is 19. If we put the 9 here, watch what happens. That would be saying that these 5 cells in the middle of the 1 and the 9 add to 19, plus 1 plus 9 is 29. So these 2 cells have to be a minimum of 16. Now we know, because we can't repeat a 9, that's just not possible. So this must be the 9, and this is not a 9. And that completes the 1 and the 9s in this block. So let's complete those. Now we don't know anything about columns 8 and 9 here, but we do know a little bit about column 7, because this 1, so even if this was 17, again that must be 3 digits, so we do get to put in some more X's, and the 9 is in one of these 2 places. Okay, there's a 9 in one of these 2 places. It's 20. 20, even if it goes down to 19, that's at least 3 digits again, so the 9 must be above the 1 in this column. And in fact, there's only 1 space left now in this 3 by 3 block for the 9. It must be here. And 20, again, if we reduce it to 19, that's still 3 digits. So the 1 is in one of these 2 squares. I don't think, work out which. Now if this comes down to 16, 16 is still 3 digits. So again, we lock the 1 into one of the extremities in this column, column 1. And where would we look for our next number? Well, actually, let's just think about this 20, because we have a 3 in the sum. So if this is 19, yes, okay, yes. If this goes down, so we're trying to make the minimum number of numbers in this sum, then this 3 would still force the remainder of the sum to add to 16, which we know must be 3 digits. So that this square cannot be an X. This is the one in the central row, and that helps us here because the 20 sum must be 3 digits at least, because if it goes down to 19, that's 3 digits. And in fact, if it goes vertically, then 19, it can't go vertically, because this this 2 square here, or 2 cell here, is restricting the total too much. If this goes to 19 and this is 2, we still have to make 17, which must be 3 digits. So we could never put the 9 higher than the 1. That's nice now, that resolves this. So if this comes, in fact, this must be the 9. And therefore this is a 7. So let's just get rid of some of this blue in the grid. That's actually quite surprising, isn't it? Now, this 11, even if it comes down to 10, must be 2 cells. So again, we get to write in some more X's. And that locks the 9 in this column into this square. And that's also nice now in terms of this 10. Even if this 10 comes down to 9, it must be 2 digits. So we can't put the 1 in either of those 2 squares. And in fact it must go here. And That's lovely, isn't it? Because this 10 now, we know the real number here is either going to be 9 or 11. Now if it's 9, this would have to be a 2, but we've already got a 2 here. So in fact the real number here is 11. Now I need to somehow represent that. So I'm going to change that to 11. And let's highlight that. So that's 11. This is 4. And this is an X. I think that's as much as we can do there, which is still very good. And this must be an X, because we already have a 1 and a 9 in the block. Still can't quite tell how this row's unwinding. This 11 now, obviously this square cannot be the 1. So the 1 is either here, which would make these 3 cells have to sum up to, it's still possible, it could be 2, 3, 5, or the 1 is here, which again I can't see how to rule that out, annoyingly. We don't know anything about this row. We know something about this 18. If this 18 comes down, it becomes 17. Even with the 2 here, this square could not be a 9, because that would make these 2 squares have to add up to 16. Sorry, not 16. Bother. This could come down to 17. That's the first time I've been undone by this. These liar things. That's going to happen again, I'm sure. Right, so what next? Well, I guess the most obvious thing is if we look at this bottom block here, we've got to put a 1 and a 9 in. We've managed to eliminate all the other squares apart from these 2. So these 2 must be 1 and 9, and there's a 9 in that row. So that must be a 1. That must be a 9. Now that's interesting. Okay, that's interesting for a few reasons, I think. Let's have a look at this summation now. So we know if this sums to 10, this would have to be 2, 3, and 5. So this would have to be a 2, and these would have to both be 3 and 5. If it's 12, is that possible? If it's 12, 2... that's interesting. If it's 12 and it includes a 2 in the sum, we could put the 2 here only, and these 2 squares would have to sum up to 10. But that's not possible, because we already have 1, 9 ruled out, 2, 8 ruled out, 3, 7 ruled out, and 4, 6 ruled out by the other contents of this block. So if this sum is 12, this must be 3, 4, and 5, and there's a 4 there. So this is a 3, 5 pair, believe it or not. Whether this sum is 10 or 12, this is a 3 and a 5. Now that might help. This is a 2 or a 4. This must be 6 and 8. I think I have to do it like that. Now that might be useful in terms of this 20 sum now, because we know this is either 19 or 21. So if it's 19, this would have to be a 7. And if it's 21, it can't be 21. It can't be 21 because it's going to be too small, this sum with the 4 here. So this is 7, this is 8, this is 6. Let's get rid of some of these. Now look at the summation here. So before I looked at this 18 and I made a mistake because I reduced it to 17 and then somehow thought that this was ruled out as being a 9, but it is ruled out as being a 9, because even if this comes down to 17 and I try and put a 9 here, now these 2 squares have to add up to 15 without using 9, without using 7. Well, that's not possible, so that is an X. Therefore, this is a 9. So let's highlight those 2. Unfortunately, we don't know anything about the central column of the grid, but we now know this. Well, we know this is a 3 or a 5. It's not resolved yet. How ironic. Okay, well that's still something. And looking at this, we've got 3, 5 and 6 to place into this column. So let's just put that in for the sake of good order. We still haven't resolved this, I don't think. No, okay. But that's not bad. We're making progress. Now we need to put a 1 somewhere in column 1. There's only 1 square left now. We get that number in. Don't know anything about row 1 or row 2. Let's have a look at this sum again. If this is as big as possible, so let's imagine I put the 9 here just for the sake of argument. That would imply these 5 squares have to sum up to 19. 19 plus 10 is 29. So these, the outside squares, would have to sum up to 16. Now, that 16 we know is at least 3 squares. I've only got 2 if I put the 9 here, so this is the 9. The 9 cannot, in fact, go any higher than this. Now, this 21 is now useful. It's going to give me some more restrictions. This 2. So if I put the 1 here, this sum doesn't work, because even if I reduce it to 20, if I include the 2 here, these 2 squares would have to add up to 18. That's not possible. So there's the 1 there. Don't know anything about column 9. But now we can, by simple Sudoku, I can lock the 1 into this square in this 3 by 3. I have a 1 here, a 1 here, a 1 here, and a 1 here. So this is a 1. I don't know what this digit is. And we've filled in the 1s and the 9s in this block. So I need to put a 9 into one of these 2 squares. There's nothing telling me how to do that here. And a 9 into one of the... yeah, because this 1 here fixes the 1 into this square. That's not... So there's a 9 in one of these 2 squares and a 9 in one of these 2 squares, and I don't think at this point I can actually work out how to resolve that. It must be something to do with this 20 sum here. But until I restrict this column further, I'm not going to be able to disambiguate that. So I think I have to just leave that and come back to it. Okay, so what is the next weak point? And it feels to me like there is some sort of restriction going on around row 5, row 6 and column 7. Let's just take a look at row 5 first. So we know that this total here is either 19 or 21. So let's just imagine it's 19. So these 4 squares add to 19. Plus 10 is 29. So these 3 squares would have to sum up to 16. And one of them is a 5. So these 2 squares would have to sum up to 11 without using 2, 9, 3, 8 or 5, 6. So this would be, in that instance, this is 4, 7, this is 4, 7. If this is 21 on the other hand, plus 10 is 31, these have to add up to 14 including a 5. So these 2 have to add to 9 without being 1, 8, without being 4, 5, without being 3, 6. So 2, 7. Okay. So this is either 2, 4, 7, or it's either 2 and 7, or it's 4 and 7. There's definitely a 7 in one of these 2 positions. So, now let's look at this square. Okay, now this is interesting, because if this is 17, so I'm wondering if this square can ever be a 2. That's the first thing I'm wondering about. Now, if this total is 17, you might say, ah, this can be a 2 because these two can still be 7 and 8. But they can't be, because if this, the only possibility there would be this square is an 8. Now, if this square is an 8, 8 plus 7 is 15. And I've still got 2 squares left. And even if I make this as big as possible, make that 19, these would have to be 1 and 3, which will repeat the 1. So there, if this is a 2, this can never be filled, because we'd have to put an 8 into the sum, and that would break this total. So this is never 2. Now, does that matter? Because now, what are the options for this square? This can be 3, 4, 5, or 7. Ah, sorry, that's not going to work. Okay, I just have to remember that. 3, 4, 5, or 7. I'm wondering about what the possibilities are now going down here. That's bugging my OCD. So, if this is 17 and this is 4, these two would have to add up to 13. And we know that this couldn't be 3, 4, or 5. This would have to be 7. And this would have to be 6. Okay, so that's helpful. So so let's carry on with that. If this was 17 and then this was 7 this time, these two squares would have to sum up to 10. This is 7. This can't be 3. If this is 4, this is 6. This couldn't be 5. That would lead to a repeated 5. And this couldn't be 7. So actually, this works if this is 17. So now we have to think about if this is 19. If this is 19 and this is 4, we've already proved that's not possible, because we have to have a 7-8 pair, which we know is not correct. Yes, if this is 19 and this is 7, these two have to add to 12, which means they would have to be 4 and 8, which isn't possible because we can't have a 4 here. So in fact, this is never 19. This is always 17, I think. And now just let me double check this arithmetic again. So this is 17. If this is 13, we said this had to be 7, this had to be 6. If this was 7, this could then be 4. I think this can be 4 or 7. I think this is either 7, 6, 4 or it's 4, 6, 7. I think that they are the two options for this. This is always 6. So now coming across here, if this goes down to 17, it breaks. So this is 19. And we need to highlight that to say that is a fixed sum. So if this is 19, these two squares have to add up to 6 without using a 1. So this becomes 2 and 4. Wow. Okay. So those three numbers, I think, are forced. And what else can we see now? Can we see anything better than that? So this total is now getting restricted into column 4. If this goes to 19, 2 and 4, these would have to be 13. These would have to be 5 and 8. Is there anything ruling that out? Can't see why that would be ruled out. If this goes to 17, these have to be 11. That's still fairly flexible, isn't it? That could still be two things, 3, 8, or 5, 6. Bah! Okay. Now, except that, look, we've got simple Sudoku I can do. 6, and there's a 6 in one of these two squares, so there is a 6 in this sum. So that changes things entirely. So 12, if this goes to 17, we'd have to have 5 and 6 here, which would have to be like that, I think. And if this goes to 19, 12, we'd have to have 7. We'd have a repeated 7 in the cage. So this is 5 and 6 in this order, which means this is 3. And now we get to do a bit of tidying up at the top. 5, 6, 3, this must be 8. This 5 here fixes the 5 there. And we need 7 and an 8 into these two positions at the top. And this must be 3 and 4, assuming I haven't made any mistakes. This looks okay, doesn't it? So 3 and 4 into those two squares. And we have worked out that this had to be 17. And I'm going to put that in because it gives me pleasure to isolate these numbers after such a lot of work. And this is 19. So let's also do the same thing there. Okay. Dum 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 dum. I haven't quite managed to figure this out yet. So this must be 2, 4, or 7 into this square. 7. We might be able to limit that down further because of the sum, though, because we've got 17 already. So if this is 19, so this can never be 7. And that gives us a 2, 4 pair in column 3. Which might be useful. That might be where I have to turn next. I'm tempted to look at this 21 now, because this 3, 4 is really restricting this summation, isn't it? So if this goes to 20, and this is 3, this would have to be 7 and 8, which would have to be an 8 here, and a 7 here. That looks like it works. So that's one option. If this is 4, this would have to be 6 and 8 into these two squares, which still puts an 8 there. This would then be 6 or 7. If on the other hand this goes to 22, 22, 5, that never works. 22, 6 just doesn't work. So this is 20, and this is 8, and this is 6 or 7. So looking at the total for this column now, we still haven't placed, what is it going to be? 2, 3, and 5. So is this a 2? I think it is. 2, and we got a 3, 5 pair up here. And that 2 there fixes this as a 4, which means this is 12. And that fixes this as 2, which means this is 19. So still I haven't spotted an error. I'm fully expecting to make one, unfortunately, because it's so easy to when you're working with liar numbers. And this has to be 3 now, which I could have done earlier. 2, 4. Now, hang on. This 20 sum now, even if this goes to 19, the fact that this is a 2 forces us higher. That does resolve the 9s. There we go, at last. I mean, that's certainly the latest I've ever resolved the 1s and the 9s in one of these between 1 and 9 Sudokus. We can probably use outies on this column. I'm tempted to look at that next, I have to say. Let's have a look at this. So if this is 19, 19 plus 10 is 29. These 3 would have to sum to 16. So that would have to be 4, 5, and 7, which is possible, I think. It would go like that. If this goes to 21, 21 plus 10 is 31. These have to be 14, these have to sum to 10 without using, this would have to be 3 and 7. So this is always 7 and this is 3 or 5. Which is, well, it's still progress of a sort because this 7 now resolves this 4, this 7 and this 4, which is all good stuff. Can we do anything more? There's a 4 locked into one of those two squares, but we don't know anything about the totals. Seeing whether I could place the 8 at least in this column, but I don't see how to do that. Or the 6. This total here. 3s, look, 3, 3, 3. I think I just managed to pause that in the midst of my sneeze, so I really hope so. Okay, so now we need 2 and 8 here, which I can't resolve. And down here I need 5 and 8, which I can't resolve. And into the 3 and 5 into the, that 3 and 5 is resolved by this 3. So this is a 3 and this is a 5. Maybe we're nearly there. This is interesting now. The fact that there is no 3. This 3 as well resolves that 5. Which resolves this summation up here. Because now the outies we're saying are 12, 16, 26, 19. This becomes that. Make this black. And we need to put the numbers 2, 6 and 8 in here. There's a 2 in one of these two squares. This is a 6 or an 8. Let's put that in. I still think that you can see this total is the only thing we haven't really used apart from standard Sudoku rules, so we're definitely going to have to go there in a moment. I'm just going to try and see if there's anything I've missed in terms of simple Sudoku rules, because that's certainly going to be easier. 6, 8. So these totals here is 3, 6 and 8. So this is, this square. This square has to be 6. This is 3 and 8, which means this is 8 and this is 3. There you go. 8, 7, like that. Can we do anything further? Yep. 4 and 3 now. 5 and 3. 5 and 6. What a puzzle. Okay. 5, 6, 7 along here. Yeah, so I think I will start to highlight these because I think it's going to be the way of resolving this 17 sum or 16 sum or 18 sum, whatever it turns out to be. 2, 4 and 6 into this square. 2, 4, 6. 6, and this square, therefore, we're looking at, what's that, 4 and 7? Yeah, 4, 7, 4, 7. So, what are the options going up here? So, if this is 16 and this is 4, it never works. If this is 16 and this is 7, these two have to sum to 9. So that can be done in 2 ways. but never with a 6. So let's try and remember that. So, okay. So if this, on the other hand, is 18, this can't be 4. So in neither situation could this be 4. I think we've just proved that, haven't we? So let's actually write in the 7, 4, before we go any further, because that is going to eliminate some of the options straight away. This can't be 7. Oh, oops. This can't be 4. And if this goes to 19, sorry, oh, I hope I didn't say 19 before. If this goes to 18. Yeah, this goes to 18, this goes to 7, this has to be 5 and 6. This goes to 16, 5 and 4. So it's either 5 and 6 or 5 and 4. It's never got the 2 in. This is always a 5. Sorry, I know this is a bit painful, but it's not easy to, certainly not easy to do these things in any sort of live context. 6 here now, so this becomes 4, and now we can finally complete column 1, I think, with a 2 there and an 8. And this must be 2 or 7. Let's put in the black numbers like that, and this, after all that work, became 16, and that does look like it's working. So we've now used all of the information that we can get from the puzzle itself, and now hopefully simple Sudoku rules will take us home. They should do. So let's have a look down here. We need 3, 6, 7 and 8. So this is 3 and 6 here. Yep, that's resolved. And this is 7 and 8, which is not quite resolved yet. The 3 and the 6, though, they may help. So this is 2, 7 or 8. So this becomes 2 or 7, just looking at the 8 over here, which means that this square here should be a 4. Hold those in. 6, 2, 7, 8. Well, what sum haven't we used? What am I not seeing here? Where is it? 6, 7, 8. Oh, I've not used this 20, although I've highlighted it. The highlight is just saying that I've locked in this to be a 20 sum. It's not actually saying that I've finished doing the arithmetic, so this is a 6. Right, good. Okay, now that should finish it off. 7, 2, 7, 8, 2, 8, and 7. And thank you very much, Jonas. That is just an exceptional, exceptional Sudoku. Still a 38-minute video, for which I'm not sorry. I mean, this is a very, very hard puzzle, and I know a lot of you really appreciate some of these longer solves of the more brutal variations. So if you enjoyed it, please leave some positive feedback. We appreciate it. And we'll be back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.